Welcome to Thrive on Live. I'm Caroline Modarressy-Tehrani. As part of our series to get all of us to look up more from our gadgets and smartphones, we've asked you to unplug, get off your devices and enjoy the moment. But we've also asked you to share your experience with us by using your devices. So it's understandable that you might be a little bit confused by this technology paradox. But joining us now to explain it all is our partner in Looking Up, Talk Stoop host Cat Greenleaf. So Cat, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me back.
I love it. So all right, first of all, the lust paradox. Tell me about what this is.
Well, I found myself feeling like a hypocrite because here I was saying, along with the whole team, put your devices down, look up, thrive, stop texting so much, and then tell me about it, take a picture on Instagram or tweet it. And I thought, well, that sounds really hypocritical. Here we are telling people both to put things down and pick them up all at the same time. So I wanted to get really clear about what we're hoping to do, and that is to look at things first and then text about them later. It's a three-step process. First, go out, put your phone down, go out and have experiences, enjoy life.
I love it.
Remember things that happened, whether it's something you saw, a conversation you had, a funny comment. Then go back, relive the moment, take a picture again of the thing that you saw that really. So
I took Kat's advice and I found this guy. I was like, the subway is like amazing for art. So and art on people's bodies. So I took this photo of a guy's tattoo with Dali, and I did the same thing. So you're on the train, you're kind of doing your own thing. You see this, you take the photo, but then you put your phone away again. And you get back to whatever you're doing. In this case, I was reading an actual book as opposed to reading. I know exactly.
A paper book?
A real paper book and everything. I was smelling the pages.
Do you still make those?
They do, apparently. I know in these weird stores called bookstores.
Books. I've never been to one.
But I mean, it's so to kind of get to that point about the paradox. Like people are not supposed to be banning their phones. It's not like you're being a governess and saying banish those phones.
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, the whole point of this campaign has been how to do things with balance, how to use your phone when you really need it, not when you just kind of want to do it for fun and then, you miss out on a whole bunch of stuff. And then also to get real about what the need is. Like, am I needed to answer this email right now, or can it really wait? Well, I take 5 minutes just to breathe. A girlfriend of mine has asked me for this next week to take 5 minutes to myself every day, and I'm like panicked. Like, how could I do that, But I'm going to try to do it, and I think it's important. So what we're asking everyone to do actually between now and the end of the month, it's a 20-day challenge to look and experience life now and then share it with us later via Instagram, via tweet, whatever works out for you. So the hashtag is look now, text later, and I'm hoping all of us can gain a little bit of balance. Like you said, it is not about getting rid of these phones. They're not going anywhere.
Right,
they're only getting more valuable. They're only getting more important. But I find my memory muscles are atrophying because I don't have to use them. Now, sometimes that's great. I don't need to remember phone numbers. That's not important. But my memory of a moment, of a picture, of that awesome tattoo is going. Because if I don't take a picture of it, then I just kind of don't hang on to it.
You feel like it didn't happen or it didn't exist.
That's right.
I want to bring in some members of our HuffPo community now who are going to join us to talk about their own experiences. So in our Google Hangout, we have Ora Nadrich, a life coach and mindfulness meditation teacher, and Cyril Flo, a leadership coach and wellness expert. So guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us.
It's so great to have you guys. So, Cyril, I want to start with you first, because in your HuffPost blog, you talk about addicted to technology, and you write about our addiction to our devices, as Kat was sort of talking about there. And you write this, quote, "As a meditation teacher, I've come to realize that people's worst fear, perhaps even more than dying, is being alone with their own thoughts and feelings. Technology distracts us from ourselves. It keeps us from going inside. If we feel bored or listless, it's easy to make a beeline to the computer and surf the net. It keeps us from feeling and healing our inner pain. Like TV, we use technology as an escape." I mean, it's very detailed kind of there. So, how unhealthy is it for us to not be alone with our own thoughts?
How unhealthy? Well, I think that, gosh, that's an interesting question. I think another way to look at that is to ask, how is technology affecting my energy? How is it affecting my own consciousness? Because it's very difficult to be present when we're addicted to our tech device. And whether it's technology, whether it's sex addiction or drinking or gambling, it doesn't matter, because the same neural pathways are being activated when you suffer from an addiction. And a really important thing is to notice, and I think what's a wonderful thing about this campaign that Cat is launching, is that you're taking space. So every time you're willing to take that space just to notice your own feelings with what happens when you feel constantly driven to your tech device.
That's a great point. Kat, what do you think?
Well, it's fascinating the way you're likening this to addiction. You know, one thing about being addicted to anything is if you quit cold turkey, you could be headed for the shakes.
Right.
You could be headed for a really hard time. So the distraction part is real. You know, I'm reading a book right now called Drinking to Distraction, and how people often just drink just to not think, to not be alone, to not whatever. Even if you think you're relaxing more, what you're really doing is guiding your thoughts away from what's really going on. It can be hard to know what's really going on. So do this carefully. You know, when you do spend time alone with your thoughts, share it with friends, talk about it. Don't feel like you're going into your inner world of pain. That just seems like that could be trouble. So tread lightly.
That's a great point. Ora, what do you think about that?
I want to say I absolutely agree with Kat. These devices are not going away anytime soon. They are such a part of our lives. They are such a reality for everyone. And what I feel is that unless you start with a mindful relationship to the usage of these devices, you're going to miss out on all those moments, because as she's describing, you know, look, share the moment, experience the moment first while you're having it, then take a picture of it. That's mindfulness to me. That's being in the moment with total awareness, without a gadget hooked to your hand, and you're with yourself in the moment that you're experiencing. I think unless we have a mindful relationship and use our devices mindfully, it turns into things like obsessive and compulsions and addictions.
Yeah,
and that's the very thing we want to stave off.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you wrote a blog post to kind of touching on this, and I just want to read a little bit of an excerpt here where you write, quote, "Not being able to turn off our tech gadgets to quiet our minds for at least one point daily other than when we're sleeping doesn't really make us in control of how our minds are being used by the gadgets we've become so accustomed to and dependent on. So unless we're willing to say, stop the gadgets, I want to get off, at least once in a while, then the world will keep spinning faster and faster with us on it, and where it will stop, nobody knows." I mean, you know, so how is technology somehow manipulating or having some control over our minds and our mental space?
Well, I think the how is about us allowing for that. And I think that Kat's campaign really targets it very importantly, in that we have to make the decision that this is a reality. We are in the techno age, and as she described, it's only going to increase. I mean, you know, I have children, their apps, they have a new app every day. So how do we manage it? How are we able to use these devices in a way that they don't control us, we control them? Again, as I think Kat mentioned, it serves us. We don't serve it.
That's a great point. Yeah. Kat, what do you think about it? I mean, obviously you're a mama as well, so you've got kids, so you know all about that. But, you know, how do you make it so that you're in control of it as opposed to it being in control of you?
Well, this is such an ongoing conversation. It's why we keep getting back together. And I think the goal here is to keep the conversation going. And listen, at the end of the day, we are responsible for our own mindfulness. We are responsible for putting it down. So yes, you know, my first blog post was making my smartphone my bitch, right? And you know, I am in control of you. We have to work on strengthening that, whether it's you want control over your eating or your exercise habits or your phone or your whatever. So is there one way to say this is how you do it? No. But starting with putting it down for small amounts of time a day,
I like it that
you do build that muscle.
You're talking about it like as an exercise almost. You know, like it is that like you go to the gym, you can lift more weights every day if you just practice a little bit more and stretch that muscle. I want to read a couple of comments, and guys, thank you for the comments. This one's from Ashley, who says, "I own a Nook, but lately I've been really into my paper books, mostly because I've been picking up first editions of newer books that are coming out," which is awesome. And another one here from Brian Penny, a question really, what's a proper balance of being alone with your own thoughts versus contributing to the outside world? Kat, I'll go to you first.
Well, it's such a great question, and I guess I would argue you are doing something good for the outside world by learning to be alone with your thoughts. If you can create a space, if you're a person who is comfortable with what's going on in here, then you're going to be a better person out there in the world. So don't feel selfish by your taking time to learn about your own thoughts, to read things that are, you know, self-helpy or help yourself. I mean, it seems like a negative connotation of self-help. But listen, we all need some help. There's a booming market there. Go to therapy, do exercise, whatever the thing is that gets you cool with you, it's going to make you a better person. So you'd have to decide your own personal balance. Again, I'm just trying with, you know, 5 minutes a day, and it's not so easy.
Right. Well, yeah, and we know it isn't, because we've been so sort of hell-bent and on being connected. You know, we wanted to, it's almost like competitive, basically, how much, you know, we kind of race against each other to be more connected. But Ciro, what do you think about that idea, this question from Brian Penny about the proper balance of being alone with your own thoughts versus contributing to the outside world?
I would say that that's very individual and personal to what feels right for you. I always believe that it depends where you are. And Cat is starting with 5 minutes, for example. And oftentimes I'll encourage people to just start with 10 breaths, which is about a minute or two. So it's really an intuitive process. And I think it's good to graduate yourself into what feels like balance for you. And a good way to do that is just to close your eyes and to center yourself and just ask, what would feel balance for me? What would feel like balance?
Wow, that's a great, I mean, what do you think of that, Kat?
Are you kidding? 10 breaths versus 5 minutes? I love it. I'm totally in. I think that's a great idea of you. But even just starting there is something. And I think the reason why we created the hashtag of look now, text later, and we're keeping the conversation going is because this is hard work. I mean, we have all really passed the point of no return in terms of loving our devices. Totally fine. But how do we just ensure balance? And I think being accountable to ourselves and to one another, that's why we're asking you to tweet about it or send an Instagram, because I think each other's experiences can help one another.
And, you know, yeah, you and I talked about this before, is that I'm getting more conscious of the fact that when I'm walking down the street, if I do look at my phone, I'm thinking other people know that we're, you know, on this kind of mission. So people might take a photo of me just like staring at my phone. So it helps, you know,
Right.
it does. It helps us be accountable. But I think that what you're saying about the need for this, you know, kind of underscoring the real reasons behind it. I mean, you've written about this before. I want to read next up. This is from the Washington Post article. Pediatrician Jane Scott writes about the importance of looking up from devices when you're with your kids, especially in the doctor's office. And she argues, quote, consider the results of a March study by researchers from Boston Medical Center who carefully observed caregivers and children at fast food restaurants. Out of 55 caregivers, 40 used their mobile devices, and their absorption was such that their, quote, primary engagement was with the device rather than the child. In many cases, the caregivers expressed irritation when the children tried to get their attention. One observer watched a woman push a small boy away as he took her face in his hands in an attempt to get her to look up from her tablet. I mean, Kat, look at it. All right, first of all, look at her body and her facial expression. You are not enjoying that idea at all, and I don't think a lot of people are either. What do you think about this?
I think we need to have a moment of full disclosure. All of us who have kids or take care of kids should be able to admit that, yes, it is sometimes really boring and really tedious, and it's not always magical and awesome. So yes, what my grown-up friend has said in this email is really attractive, so let me check it out. But my own son said to me the other day, Mommy, put your phone down. It was a searing moment for me, and I keep email accounts for them, and I wrote him an apology email afterward and thanked him for reminding me of my own campaign. But the last thing you want on earth is A, for a child to get hurt on your watch because you're spaced out on your phone, and B, for your child to ever feel less than, right?
No,
and I am no parenting expert at all, but I will say that, yes, sometimes it's boring. Watching him jump up and down in the bouncy castle, not the most exciting.
After the first 10 seconds.
That's right. That's right. So I was literally, you know, like this, like, he's like, watch me, and I'm like, you know, and he caught me, and I was grateful for it because that's the commitment we made when we signed up to have kids.
I think it's an excellent point. Ora, what do you think about that? You know, particularly what the pediatrician, the Washington Post had outlined. What did you make of that?
Well, I have to say, I'm astounded at how often I see, just even in my own neighborhood, when I see moms, which we, you know, that includes us, and caregivers who are on their cell phones while they're strolling babies. I mean, I'll be driving in my car and it'll get my attention. So I think that, yes, note to self, do not do that when you're with your child unless it's an absolute emergency and you have to be on that phone for a reason which you can explain to your child. Second, if you have a caregiver who's taking care of your child, tell them, do not be on your phone when you're strolling the baby. You know, we have to let them know. We all have to be in this conversation collectively together. It's a campaign for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And Kat, your final word on that.
I have a quick idea, which is, let's say your child also wants you to watch them up and down in the bouncy castle for 20 minutes straight. Maybe that's a time to a little bit space out and just sit there and breathe and focus on the bouncing. Or if you're at the park, it is not always the world's most interesting. Maybe take that time to at least just close your mind a little bit and just watch your kid and let that be your moment of quiet and not pull out your phone, because the kid will be better for it and you'll feel better. I mean, I still feel guilty. I'm feeling so guilty.
I know. Look, it's like she's so conflicted now. But I think it's a good point. And I think I love what Siri said as well about just sort of taking the 10 breaths. And, you know, if you can't do 5 minutes, maybe the 10 breaths and then build up to the 5 minutes. 10 breaths sounds good. I could do 10 breaths. Well, guys, I want to thank you, Kat. It's always such a pleasure, love. Always so good to have you. And Siri and Ora, thank you guys as well so much for joining me today on HuffPo Live. And of course, as Kat mentioned, join us in our Look Now, Text Later campaign. It's a hashtag. You can tweet at us by using the hashtags, hashtag Look Now, Text Later, and of course the hashtag Thrive.